Hello, Emery's Crime here, your fellow crime, thriller and mystery book lover. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I have something a little different to the usual, which is why I think you should always judge a book by its cover. I just want to make it extremely clear that this is just my opinion and your opinion could well differ to mine. This video is split into three parts. Part one is the main reasons why I think that you should judge a book by its cover. Part two is great books with fantastic covers, in my opinion. And obviously part three is the opposite to part two, which is terrible books with awful covers. I hope you really enjoy this and I'd be really interested to see your opinions on this. But anyway, I'm going to get straight to it. First of all, the reason I think we should judge books by their covers is quite frankly because we want them to look nice in our homes. We have them on display for people to see. They are basically ornaments. I know this is a case of the pot calling the kettle black because my bookshelf isn't great, but it's a work in progress. Once I'm done with my library, I intend to have my bookshelves looking spectacular. Second of all, why I think we should judge books by their covers is the better a book, the bigger the marketing budget behind the book, and part of the marketing budget obviously goes into the cover design. At the end of the day, the more popular, more sought after cover designers will be hired and more time will go into perfecting the cover so that it is just right. I saw somebody say that book covers is the equivalent of dressing up for an interview and that first impressions are everything, and I couldn't agree with that more. When we are book shopping, we do not have time to look at every single blurb of every single book. And naturally, we are drawn to authors that we're familiar with, so books where we've not heard of them before, or books where it's an author that's not familiar to us, they can often be missed. So books really have two opportunities to try and grab our initial attention. Firstly is through the book title, and secondly, of course, is through the front cover. Let's face it, more often than not, we are drawn to the cover over the book title, especially as lots of books end up with the same or similar titles. Front covers are an excellent way to give us as a reader the vibe of what the book's going to be about. Let's talk reprints and special editions now. If a book is more popular, then quite often the book will be reprinted again with a different cover. Let's take this example of The One by John Marrs. It's a dystopian sci-fi book. It was released a few years ago. It was extremely popular and this is the original cover. Because this book was so popular and because people are still buying copies of it, it has been re-released with a new cover which looks like this. And along with reprints of popular books, we also are finding more and more that we are getting special editions of popular books. For example, recently V.E. Schwab released Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. This is the cover. I personally didn't enjoy this book, but it overall has been a huge success and it has now been re-released with this special edition cover. It is absolutely stunning and who would not want to pick that up? And because it's a popular book with a special edition cover, chances are that if you were to buy this special edition of this book, you're probably going to enjoy it if it's your kind of thing. Whether you're agreeing or disagreeing with my points so far, let's face it, we are all guilty. We have at least once in our life judged a book by its cover. Before I move on to my cover examples, my next couple of points aren't really about why I think we should judge books by their covers, but more how I think the publishing industry takes advantage of the fact that we are guilty of judging books by their covers. Even though I personally prefer to read a paperback book over a hardback book, I find more often than not, I actually prefer the hardback covers versus the paperback covers. And I personally think that this is intentional because obviously hardback books are twice the price of paperback books. For example, let's take this Chris Carter book. So this is the hardcover, absolutely stunning. And this is the awful paperback version. And on the flip side of this, if a book which is expected to be popular flops, I sometimes find that the book, when it's re-released in paperback, has a brand new cover to try and entice sales. For example, Homes is Where the Bodies Are by Genevieve Rose was released in the UK and this was a hardback cover. This was a highly anticipated release for a lot of people because her book, The Perfect Marriage, was really popular. However, the book didn't go down very well, so when it was released as a paperback book, instead of using the awful hardback cover, it was re-released with the VH tape cover, and I think that this was done in order to drive sales. I have 5 examples of great books with fantastic covers for you. Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak was a big success, and to this day it is so popular, and this is the cover. The red cover is so eye-catching and the design is simplistic yet eye-catching, and it kind of gives you a vibe of what you're getting yourself in for when you read the book. Next isn't a thriller book, yet it's one of my top 10 books of all time, which is The House in the Cerulean Sea. This book is incredibly popular, and part of the reason why people love it is because of the beautiful writing and the wholesome vibes. This front cover is absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful. The colour palette is stunning and it gives off the cozy vibes which you get when you read the book. Another popular book with a great cover, in my opinion, is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The colours are really striking. I think they really capture the Hollywood glamour which you get when you read the book. The colour palette as well is a little unusual compared to the norm, which makes it so striking. When you see this cover on a shelf, let's face it, you will be drawn to it. Going back to book covers, which I touched upon earlier, this book also has an extremely intriguing book title. Obviously, when it comes to popular books, I couldn't not mention Fourth Wing. I personally haven't read it, but I think the cover is fantastic. The hardcover is this beautiful gold with the black striking against the gold with this intricate pattern. And then because the cover is really nice, for the paperback version, they've basically done the same but flipped the colourways, so the black is now gold and the gold is now black. I personally haven't read Fourth Wing, but it has something like a 4.57 rating on Goodreads with over 3.3 million ratings. So if that doesn't tell you that that is a good book, then I don't know what will. Another good book with a fantastic cover is, of course, the OG covers for the Magnolia Park series. They are absolutely stunning. This series has obviously been huge over social media, and even though it's not my usual thing, I absolutely love them. I think they're a great guilty pleasure. The OG covers are basically works of art. I'm obsessed with them. They're probably my favourite book covers ever. I don't know what they were thinking when they reprinted the book with those awful shoe covers, so let's just forget about that. Going back to my point about special editions, because these books have been so popular, they have released special edition copies of these books. As you can see behind me, I have a couple. This gold foiling is absolutely stunning, yet they still have the OG cover pattern on them as well. They are just magnificent, and if the book wasn't popular, they wouldn't have re-released it with these gorgeous covers. Before I go on to my bad book, terrible cover examples, if you made it this far, I just wanted to say thank you ever so much. It honestly means so much to me. As well as being on BookTube, you can find me on Instagram and on TikTok. Now on for some bad books with terrible covers, in my opinion. Some of you may really strongly disagree with me on this one, but first up I have the ACOTAR series. So I personally found this series average, and I also think the covers themselves are average. They're nothing special, but they're not terrible, they're just kind of meh. And when I've spoken to a few fantasy book lovers, quite a lot of them have actually said that they prefer her Throne of Glass series to ACOTAR. So I think that personally this supports that it's an average book series with average covers. Please don't hate me for finding them average, because obviously we all have different tastes in books, and that keeps the world a very interesting place. Next up is A Little Life, and I know that some people say that this is a masterpiece, and it's kind of like Marmite. People either think it's the best book ever or fall into the category that I do of hating it. However, based on the front cover, I should have known that this wasn't going to be a book for me. It gives off trauma, and I don't really enjoy reading traumatic books, so I should, in this case, have judged the book by its cover and not read it. What Have You Done by Shari LaPena was a thriller book of hers which I read last year, and literally, what have you done, Shari? This book, in my opinion, was awful, and the cover is awful. It's dreary and drab, which yes, kind of works with the plot, but I feel like you can do dreary and drab much better. I feel that no thought went into this cover whatsoever. Next up again is a Marmite book. People either love it or hate it, and that is Normal People by Sally Rooney. She does not use speech marks or quotation marks in her writing whatsoever. Some people would say that that is literary genius. However, I would argue that that is just poor, lazy, pretentious writing. The cover, in my opinion, is awful. Why is there a sardine tin on there? It makes absolutely no sense, and in my opinion, it's an awful cover, and it was a terrible, boring book. My final terrible cover bad book is Suicide Med by Freida McFadden. You may or may not know that I'm working my way through Freida McFadden's backlist, and to be fair, this is one I haven't read. However, the Goodreads rating of this is, I think, the worst of all her standalone books, and also the cover is abysmal. I mean, what is that? What is that? You can definitely tell that this was a book of her earlier writing career. If you've enjoyed this style video, then make sure you check out my Why I Think Celebrity Authors Suck video, which I will link here. I will also link a recent-ish video on books I would sell my soul for to be able to read again for the first time. Do you have any examples of bad books with bad covers or great books with fantastic covers? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you ever so much for taking your time to watch this video. Thank you. Bye!